Ugh.
Hi,
Hi.
friend.
Hey,
How
hi,
are
how
you?
That might help. You say something?
Hi, friend. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday to you. How are you? Happy New Year, y'all.
Happy
Happy
New
New
Year.
Year.
You're our first meeting of the new year.
Yay.
Well, we've got somebody new here today. Jen is my friend from work, and she had a copy of the ARC. You guys gave us one, and so we're excited to have her with us, and we're excited to talk about this book.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You know you were one of our favorites.
Thank you. That's very sweet.
We love you very
very true, though.
much.
We do.
So you always have a special place. I sent you all of our reviews. Everybody's going to put them in Goodreads. And then if they haven't already, I put mine in, and then we made you a song playlist as a gift. We took the look of the book and kind of put something together and put a really nice song list together. And it's also on Spotify. So I emailed you all of that. Yeah, as our way of saying thank you for letting us have the ARC.
Oh, well, thank you. Oh, I'll go and play that. I love. I don't know that I did a playlist for this book. I have to go back and look because I always do a playlist, and I don't know that I did on this one. I have on the one I'm working on. See, now you're gonna make me look because I'm like, did I do one? Because if not, I'll just use yours with credit, with full
Yeah,
credit.
well, I was going to say, and you're also able to add songs if you want to add to it. I
Yeah,
mean,
for
obviously,
sure.
as the author, so it's open, so I can share with you for permission, so you can add songs to it.
I don't think I did. I don't think I did.
Well, if you
Because I got to
didn't,
remember, what was the title of this book? Wait, it's certainly not under It's One of Us. It'd be under another title. Huh. There's, oh,
did you do one?
that is a whole album. I did, and I've only got a couple of things on it.
So if you want to add them to ours,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have very much on there. Can you read that?
okay, yeah, I can.
Okay, yeah.
If you want to screenshot that and email it to me, I'll add them to ours, and then I'll add it to the playlist of the graphic that I created so that we can share it online.
Sweet. All right, that's coming in right now.
I got you.
That was one of those. Just you want the me
Yes,
address?
please. Yeah, either one's fine, honestly, JT. They both are good.
There you go.
Thank you, my dear. So I'll add that, and then I'll send that back to you with your songs added to it.
Awesome. Thanks. That's super cool.
Of course.
Collective effort this time. I like that.
Yeah. Takes a village. We got you always.
It does.
It does. It really does.
So let's take our picture really fast, and then we'll dive into questions. Does anybody? Well, I was going to say, I guess we don't because it was digital. I was going to say, do we have the book? Do you have the book that you can hold up, JT?
I do.
Eee.
I do.
Awesome. All right, guys. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect. And I'll send that to you afterwards when I update the playlist, JT, so you have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, my dear. All right, who wants to ask the first question? I got a ton. This one was awesome. I think.
I'll go. Did you go on any forums for donor kids as part of your research?
No, not until after the book was done.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I wrote this a while ago. It's really kind of crazy. I see your kitten in the background. Hi, baby. I wrote this 18 months plus a year ago. So I turned it in June of 21. And so I started it in the pandemic during, early on in the pandemic. So I had forgotten all about the sibling donor registry. I'll be honest, I had forgotten it existed. And I didn't remember until it was the end of the book. And then I went and checked it out. I had read a bunch of books and stuff, but I hadn't gone into the forums themselves. Because I wanted Scarlett to have her own thing. And she's so tech savvy. I mean, I feel like she wouldn't have used that outside of matches. She would have her own world that she was trying to control. And that's, so not while I was writing, but after, just to make sure I had the lingo right.
Mm-hmm. How did you know about Discord? Because certainly with the line of work I'm in and everything, I know all about Discord, but it was interesting to be like, oh, wow. Other people know that like that is exactly what I think a kid would do, would be like, I'll set up a channel on Discord and talk with people through there anonymously.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting, the decentralization of social media now. It used to be we only had 2 places and then 3, right? We had 3. We had Facebook, Twitter, and then Instagram. And then people started not liking how Facebook was running things. They started having problems with Twitter. We had all kinds of social things happening on Twitter, Instagram, which was like the most perfect place because it was just beautiful pictures turned into the hellscape of reels. And I'm fully partially responsible. I do reels too. But it just changed at that moment. And then everything kind of sprang up and suddenly we had all of these things. So I'm on a couple of Discord servers for a couple of other events, organizations that I'm in. And so I knew about it, but I hadn't really gotten into it. And then I asked a friend of mine who's got a young kid who is a computer science nerd. I'm like, if he were to do this, it was going to be a Facebook group. And I'm like, no, that age group's not going to have a Facebook group. They've got to have something else. Would it be Discord? And I checked with a friend of mine. She was like, yes, it's definitely, that's where it would be. And then I saw a really interesting documentary, and I will not be able to tell you the name or anything else, but they were talking about sex in schools and how they have these servers set up to go and, have online sex with each other. I was like, okay, I'm certainly going to have to get a little smarter about this. So yeah, it's an interesting environment. It's it's invite only. It's not like you can go, it's like the dark web, right? It's invite only. You can't exactly
you can't search for a group or
you can't open Tor and be like, okay, hey, Google this. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. So and a lot of my characters are hackers in my other books. In my thrillers, I've got a lot of hackers. So I find it fascinating and I try to stay on top of what's happening, though it's gotten so decentralized now. I mean, when everybody decided they were going to leave Twitter, watching every new social media pop up, oh, we're all going to Mastodon. I went and looked at Mastodon for 2 seconds and went, yeah, this is above my pay grade. I mean, it's just too complicated, right? The idea of a frictionless environment to talk to your friends is what's always been social media's, biggest plus. But now, we have group text. We don't need to go on a Facebook group. We can do this and we can do it privately, and we don't have to worry about overlords selling our information and all of that stuff.
I was going to say, by reading your books, I always learned about hackers, because it's not something like I did not know what Discord was. So I learned something new through this. So I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
That was interesting.
I'm glad to hear I used it properly, because you never want to.
Oh, yeah.
I remember, I forget what book it was, but a reviewer read an arc and, it was Good Girls Lie. A reviewer read the arc and sent me a note and said, hey, they're not going to be programming in a computer science, an accelerated computer science environment. They're not going to be programming on Macs. They're going to be programming on PCs, on Dells. And, I disagree, because I learned to program on a Mac, but she's right. And I was really glad that she mentioned that. So I added that they had top line Dells and Macs to work on, so that because, obviously people do code on Macs.
Mhm.
We wouldn't have a Mac, environment. So it was kind of interesting. I like to get it right, and I get it wrong all the time.
Well, I loved it when I saw the Discord thing, because I was like, that's exactly what they would do.
Mhm.
100%. And I was like, that's so cool that she just
Yep.
knew.
Awesome. Got my finger on the pulse. I don't have kids, so I have to go out to other people and be like, okay, if you thought your kid was up to no good,
What would they be doing?
and could you ask him what his friends are doing and tell me? It would help.
Yep.
What was
Yeah.
the most challenging part of writing this? Was it sharing parts of your story through Olivia's character?
Yes, definitely.
Or
I
was
mean,
that
definitely.
therapeutic in a way?
No, it was, and I'm sure it comes through very clearly with her little bits of rage. It was, it was like tearing open that wound over and over and over and over and over. Every time I read, every time I edited, every time it was really hard. I mean, it's not a gentle opening. And it's, obviously very much things that I experienced. But you know what the hardest thing was?
What?
I didn't know who the killer was in the prologue.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you
yeah,
knew how it
same.
was. That was the next thing that I was gonna ask is, did we know who done it essentially, or?
I knew that I wanted his biological son to be a murderer,
Mhm.
right? And have murdered more than one person. He's a serial killer. Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely a serial killer. Because I can't imagine anything that would be more terrifying than finding out your kid's a serial killer.
No,
That's
and that your
not good.
genetics, yeah, because we never
we
know, how much of it is
not
genetic based and everything else, yeah.
But I had no idea who that was about. And my editor wanted me to take it out because she felt like it was clear that I didn't know who it was about. And I said, absolutely not. That the prologue is staying. Absolutely. I will fight you to the death on this one, because I know it needs to be there. It's very important for it to be there. And then when I figured out who it was, then it all worked. But for a long time, I didn't know who was going to be responsible. And you're going to post this, so I'm trying not to say things that are super spoily for people that haven't read it. But I really wanted Park to be a good guy. I write bad guys all the time. I really wanted to actually have a good guy, a solid man who, is making bad decisions, but isn't necessarily evil. And so I struggled because I really thought that was him for the longest time. But then I finally figured out, no. This is current day. This is what's going on. This is absolutely. And then I tweaked it a little bit so it would feel ambiguous, but it was clear in my mind. So as long as it's clear in my mind, it's going to be clear when you read it eventually.
And I think I always thought, like from the beginning, Park made me nervous. I couldn't quite pinpoint why when I'm starting, but I'm like, oh, something about you doesn't feel right. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, something about you.
Right.
Yeah. And then we meet Perry, and then I'm like, okay, so is Perry the good guy, or is Perry a bad guy too? Because they both share the same genetics.
Yep.
So I'm like, so then it had me questioning Perry. And when I'm like, I don't want to spoil anything, but when they're at the beach house at the very end and he comes to see Olivia, I'm like, ooh, you gonna hurt her? Like you come, I'm like, you going to do something bad to her at the beach house because you found her and you know where she is and nobody's gonna find out you did it?
It's very possible.
So I'm like, so many of those times I was like, oh no.
I mean, that was a very
Happen.
hot situation. I mean, that could have gone in a lot of different ways.
Well, when she wakes up from that dream, that's a dream or whatever, and her hands are bound and it's dark and she's in the trunk of a car. I'm again goosebumps, JT. For I'm like, oh no! I'm like, did it get her?
So good.
I'm like, there's so much in it, and you had so many twists and turns that
Mhm.
just like kept me wanting to figure out like where we go and what happens next. And it's probably one of my favorites of yours. But I say that every
Mhm.
time I read one, I'm like, okay, I'm like, this is the best one. And I'm like, but it is.
I feel like this is definitely a unique book for me. It is more audacious. It is more personal. It has a much bigger cast than I have lots of characters in my books, but this has 7 point of view characters, and they're all vital to the story in some way. And that was really fun to build. How many, where in the story, how do you interweave their aspect of what is happening, right? It's one event, it's a single event, and every ripple in the pond is hitting a different person. And how do they all respond? And then how to braid that all together into a story that makes sense.
Well,
And it was incredibly challenging.
and I enjoyed that part because there were things that I was like, I don't know how this ties in. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? When you're reading it, like I would read it and you almost dismiss it for a minute, but then you get 10 pages, 20 pages, 30 pages down the line. And I'm like, oh, that's how that ties in. I'm like, okay, I got it.
Relevant.
I'm like, got it. Okay, this writer made sense. You know what I'm saying? Like this girl in the pond is totally relevant.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's really funny because I'm a pantser, and I sometimes have to trust my subconscious has put something in for a reason.
Mhm.
And I will find that reason later on. And so sometimes there are things, I've got pages of my new book with my agent this weekend. And I know she's going to say, what does this have to do with the story? And I'm not quite sure yet. And I have to say, I'm not sure, but we have to leave it in because I'm going to figure it out. And that's what this was over and over and over. It's like, all right, just trust it, trust the story, trust the process, something that's there for a reason. I rarely cut, and I'll get blocked and, bang my head against a wall trying to find the thread from something that I've put in that, maybe I should just take out, but I have to trust that my mind has put something there on purpose.
I love connecting those dots, and it makes me feel smart at that moment. I'm like, oh, that thing that I'm like, I don't know what this means or why that's there. All of a sudden I figure it out, and I'm like, this is so smart. I'm like, she's so smart. I love her.
Well, we've talked about this before, how we writers have conditioned you for a twist, right? So everybody's looking for the twist. What is the twist? What is the twist? And I like to not do that because, and I get dinged. I mean, I get dinged in reviews from people who are like, oh, I figured it out. I'm like, I wasn't trying to hide it.
Well, and I don't try to figure anything out. You know, yeah. And I was going to say, everybody here, like they try to figure it out. They love to figure it out. They're like, Brittany, do you think it's da-da-da-da-da? And I'm like, I don't know, Brooke. I don't know, Bailey. I'm like, I'm just along for the ride, basically.
That was
Like
something I really enjoyed about this book was that, and I put it in my review. It'll be on Goodreads when I post it. Sorry, I haven't done it yet. But how I like to be all smug when I read thrillers. And so I was like, oh yeah, I know who, like, it's obviously going to be this guy who is the killer. And then it was very clear that we were supposed to know, like we were supposed to have figured that out because you reveal it pretty early in the book. And I was like, oh, I'm not so smug after all. Like we were supposed to figure this out. And I'm like, oh, now I have to figure out what the twist is. And then I went in weird places. I was very convinced that Lindsay was going to end up being like the bad person in the book.
You are not the first person to say that. A lot of people think Lindsay is the.
Yeah, I was ready. I was like, oh, obviously it's going to be Lindsay, and it wasn't.
Again, we've the naughty female, right? The female character who is so devious and unreliable and everything. That's really interesting. That's really interesting.
I was surprised by what Olivia did. I mean, even by accident, you know what I'm saying? Again, trying not to give away too many spoilers for anybody, but even by accident, I was surprised by what she did. And I was like, Oh, and I was like, and so that's when I made that connection of when they were talking about they went away for the girls' weekend that never happened or whatever. I can't
Yeah.
remember. They were talking to Parker Perry and so Perry, and they were like, yeah, she said she was away for this girls' weekend and there was no girls' weekend. And I'm like, that was the weekend of the girls' trip. It had to have been. I'm like, and I'm like, what a good cover up. I'm like thinking nobody's gonna find out, but I'm like, oh, that's one heck of a weekend.
And, you know, feels guilty and is, you know, spends years trying to make up for it by not saying anything. And, you know, it's an interest, that is a really interesting situation because, you know, would you step forward? There are a lot of moral conundrums in this. And that was one of the bases for the whole story is what would you do? What would you do if you were in this situation? What would you do if there was an accident and somebody else took the blame? Would you step forward and say, no, it was me? Especially when that somebody, you know, dies and the secret dies with them, then, you know, you're free and clear. Can you live with that? I mean, can you live with yourself? And that's, you know,
I'm like, I get guilty when I just get bad feedback at work. I eat myself alive. You know, I'm like, I sit there and it's in my head for days and weeks and months. I'm like, let alone if I did something like legitimately wrong.
Yeah. I mean, legitimate, whether on purpose or
by accident. I'm like, because that was an accident, truly.
Would you, well, it was, and then, but it's
I was like, it's an accident, and then she took it to the
then,
extreme by
right.
yes. So the initial thing is an accident, and you're like, I mean, that was just a really bad accident.
Yeah, just, I mean, horrible timing, stupid, you know, but then cover up.
That's
what gets you in the end.
But I guess you never know what you're gonna do in a panic and a tizzy either.
Right.
Like we can all say, oh, we would never.
Oh yeah. I was like, you know, I would call the police immediately. I would turn myself in. But would you not just at least sit there on the ground and be like, oh God, what
this
am I
has this has ramifications and repercussions and
long reaching repercussions. And, you know, I found that fascinating to sit and contemplate and fascinating to write. And it was just a lot of fun. I mean, she's just an interesting character all the way around. Well, probably my most unique and layered character I've ever created.
From the start, and I loved that you were talking about how she kind of came to life in the end, you know what I'm saying, and kind of demanded that she be written, basically. But I'm like, from her abortion and then all of the miscarriages that she's suffering afterwards, so she feels like she's almost being punished, to this accident that you learn about in the end, and you're like, gosh, this poor woman's life, you know, and everything she's been through, honestly.
And it's, again, that surface, right? The surface, and then you drop that pebble and the ripples go out, and then what's actually happening under the water? And that's the interesting thing, right? That's how, you know, the ripple hits at every person. How do they react to the event? But then you start, what's happening in the mud where that pebble landed? Let's dig all that up and see what we find with that character, right?
Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's something I've done bits of before, but this is the first time I feel like I really mined all the way down to the bedrock of who somebody is. And I didn't know it writing it. I mean, there was a lot of it that came later, you know, like, yeah, you've heard me talk about, she just appeared in my head one day, walking down the beach, just so lonely and so hurt, and something was dreadfully wrong. And why? What was that? And I had to go try to figure it out. And it would be very easy to stop. You know, she's just suffered a horrible miscarriage, number 6, you know, just let's stop there. That's enough. Right. But
I mean, that is heavy.
It is.
I love it.
Did you feel like the whole book was heavy?
No, because there was so much going on.
Okay.
But I think part of that too is I empathize for those that have had a miscarriage, but I don't carry that weight myself. And so it might have been heavier had I have had that experience, you know, because I could feel what she's feeling. Like I empathize, I sympathize, I care, but I've not had that loss. There was a lot that happens that I think keeps it moving. And so for me personally, I didn't feel. What did you guys think? Did it feel heavy to you all? Jen, I know you said it did.
It did. My experience of reading this book was really interesting and fun. I loved it. And I do have a couple of questions. So, Brittany, when you say like it kept you moving, it propelled you forward, I simultaneously felt that and also felt that it was very heavy, but it was because of the layers and the intricacy. And the more you find out, the more it builds. And these are very whole, real characters who have been through tragedy, right? They have dealt with grief, they have dealt with sorrow. So for me, like that did latently carry through the entire story. So emotionally it was heavy, but also my experience of reading it was compelling. It was a rush. Like, even though it was heavy, I didn't want to stop. I couldn't stop. So it was both of those things for me, actually.
That's awesome. Well, I did my job.
I was wondering.
Might as well retire now. I'm never going to be able to pull that off again.
No, you can't. You're our favorite. You're not.
Yeah, we need more. I'm actually, my professional background is editing, but most of the book length things that I've edited are nonfiction, right? So they're very linear. Like a memoir just happens. You have to write this before you write this. Could you talk a little bit about your approach? Like, as I'm reading it, I love multi-perspective, multi-narrative books. One of my styles. And so I was just wondering, like, you know, did you write it linearly? Did you write one person's point of view and then go back and add the other? Did you just skip around? I can't imagine writing something as layered as this was.
I skipped around.
Awesome.
Skipped around. I used to write very, very linear books. And then I got Scrivener. And Scrivener, there's like fog in your background. Is that like for real?
That is a humidifier for my
Okay.
very particular jungle plants that are very sad that I forced them to live in Pittsburgh.
Gotcha. I was like, I love fog. And you've got fog inside.
This is like my cozy, happy space room with a little bit of fog and a little bit of sunshine. Yeah.
Okay. So yes. So when I start a book, I do something called 40 scenes, where I dump out every piece of dialogue, any character descriptions, setting, conversations, plot points, anything that's in my head. I just dump it out on the page. And then when I hit 40 of those, then I've got enough, because if you do writer math, that's 40 scenes technically. And each scene at 2,000 words, that gets you to 80,000 words. So that's kind of an outline for me. And then I kind of order them a little bit. And of course, I never have, I end up having 40 scenes, probably more like 150, and then they get broken up. But I will then go to usually the opening, because I really like to nail that opening and have something concrete that I feel like here's my foundation tonally. Here's what I am, where I think I'm going to go, just setting the stage, setting the tone of what's going to happen. And then I will probably write like the first 10,000 words in order. And then I start skipping around. So I'll get bored and be like, the scene isn't working. I'm bored with it. Something's not right. So I'm going to go write a scene that I am excited about. And that kind of keeps me sitting down every day. But then I have to weave them together and figure them out. And so, I do end up probably, once I have most of the scenes from a character, I'll dump them into their own folder. and then start pulling them out. It's like, okay, this needs to happen, then this. And it's really hard when you have to shift entirely to a stranger who has nothing to do with the story on its surface, like we do with Darby, right? Darby comes out of left field, really, because we've been with Olivia. There's been a lot going on with Olivia, and it's very clearly Olivia's book. And then up comes Scarlett, and then up comes Darby. And it's like, well, wait a second, who are these people and why are they here? So finding the place to do that, where you've got, I write what I call 4 turns. So a lot of scripts, I'm sure you've heard this from other authors, you know, you have part 1, part 2, part 3. I do 4 parts because I think breaking up that middle helps it not start sagging in the middle. So when I feel like I've got that first turn in place, that's when I'll bring in another character, another point of view, another situation, you know, to try to figure it out. Like the cops, we got it like, okay, let's go to the other side. Let's go see what they actually think about what's going on here, because clearly something's not right. And then it's just weaving things in and out. And I changed I did move a bunch of stuff in the last round before the galley. And I found a huge mistake in the galley because of it. And I thank God found it. Nobody caught it but me. Which is a good thing. But I have something so completely out of sequence in this that I was like, oh my gosh. And I had to actually go rewrite 3 parts of the book. And it took me a week to figure out, okay, do I just drop this? How do I do it? What do I do? I mean, I was panicking. My editor, of course, was out of town. I mean, it was in dead week during August when nobody was around. You know, publishing closes for the last 2 weeks of August. Nobody's in town. Everybody's gone. And I was just trying to figure out, what do I do? What do I do? So I fixed it. But yeah, I bet none of you caught it, did you? Shame.
No, I was gonna say you fixed it well.
Disc. No. You didn't.
Oh, is it still in our is it still in our galley?
Yeah. It's in the galley. It is in
Okay.
the galley.
What is it? What
It
did we
is,
miss?
Darby and Scarlett call in to the police and insist that they're going to be anonymous. They don't want to give any information.
Yep. I remember that.
Yep. Very next page, when they go to talk to Park, they give her the name and say they want to talk to him. It's like, they can't do that. They insisted on being anonymous.
Yeah.
What?
I didn't catch that. I think I was so wrapped up in everything that was happening. I did not catch that.
I didn't even catch it, and I usually.
Yeah, Jesse's good at stuff like that.
And it's been
Tiny
a week.
inconsistency.
I'll blame it on that, but normally I catch stuff.
Yeah, it shows up in 5 places. I had to rewrite 5 different sections to make it all work.
That's a lot to have to rewrite.
Yeah, at on the last pass. So I ended up having to do a second last pass because I had to fix all of it.
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
So that's the downside of weaving. That's the downside of not going in order. So, you know, there was a point of view chapter from the murderer earlier than we have it. Because again, I wasn't trying to hide who he was, right? And my editor felt like all of that information came out later in the interview with the cops after the situation. I don't want to give it away. I don't want to give it all away. So I took it out, and it did kind of extend that mystery a little bit, just for another 50 pages or so, until it's like very clear who it is. But yeah, that's, the problem of weaving and not going in a linear fashion is you can trip on your own 2 feet and not catch it. I just, nobody caught it.
Well, the nice part, it wasn't blatant. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think if it was, somebody here would have
Somebody
caught
would've-
it. Yeah,
would've caught
one of us would have had it.
I mean, how many hundreds of times have I read it and didn't catch it? You know?
I was gonna say it's a problem when you're so close to it, and I was just so wrapped up in like, okay, where we going? What's happening? More things are
What's
happening. Yeah, like who's done what? This guy is making me nervous. You know what I'm saying? The son is scaring me and breaking into his house over and over and over again, changing his security code to get in, to have this temporary password. You think about how enmeshed he's become, and they don't even know. They're oblivious to it.
Right. I mean, which is just terrifying to me.
Which is not that far-fetched. Like that's the craziest part about this book, is nothing in it felt so far-fetched that it couldn't happen. And then that kind of frightened me too, because I'm like, okay, this is not so out of the realm of possibilities in today's day and age.
Yeah.
I think that was one of my favorite things about this book, is how easily relatable it was. And I did put that in my review, because it's like, but when that came up with the changing of the security codes and all that, I'm like, oh no, like just shocked me, and it is scary as hell. Like, that thought is just terrifying, because it was that easy and he didn't even think about it.
Changing the words, temporary password. I'm like, adding the cameras, all the things he's
very-
broken
very
into
doable.
and done. And I'm like, okay, alone. I have rooms in my house I don't go into. You know what I'm saying? Where I'm like, I think about that. Like, I watch that Frogger stuff, that's on Lifetime. I really shouldn't, but I do. And usually before bed. And I'm like, somebody could live in your walls. Somebody could live in your attic. What is that creak? What is that noise? I'm like, hopefully Annabelle would be like, listen, somebody does not belong here.
See, I've got a dog that barks at everything. And so it would be really easy for somebody to like live in the house and for like the dog to be like barking, and for us to just think, well, that's just Brex barking at whatever.
Barking
Like,
at whatever.
I would gaslight myself and be like, there's not anybody living in the house. Like, he's just
Well,
being-
Belly loves everybody. So if they met Annabelle at one point and rubbed her belly and fed her a carrot, like, we're done. He could live in the walls. He could live in the attic. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's got a bed.
Happened
Like,
here in Nashville, there was a guy living in somebody's attic. This was back when we lived in our other house. And the contractor found him. And it was like,
see?
yeah.
So that was the thing, is you start to read that and you think about it, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, so that's freaky. That's another level. But then
Well,
like,
I mean, there's nothing worse than somebody, this is your safe,
invading
right?
your privacy, that's your safe place. Like, I've had attempted break-ins where, praise God, they didn't get in, but it still makes you feel violated in a way that's hard to explain. So the fact that they went through the paperwork, they found Olivia's note where her secret was, you know what I'm saying? Like, Peyton's like, I know your secret. And we're like, at that point, I'm like, okay, well, what's her secret? What did she do? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you know that we don't know? I need to know. And so again, that propelled me forward, because I'm like, I got to know what he knows that we don't know.
Yeah, it's a fun book. I'm happy
There-
with it.
It turned out wonderfully, I think. And I really like your honesty at the end. Like, it just adds a layer when you're done. You know what I'm saying? Like, your author's notes, like, it made us feel closer to you in those moments, I think, which I love.
Thank you. That was probably the hardest thing to write, was the author's note. It's like, how much do you share? How much, we live in a world that we share everything, right? But we don't share anything. If you really think about it, we share everything and nothing. And I felt like it was very important that if I was going to share, that it had to be something meaningful and not nothing. Not just a nod, not just a, hey, I'm allowed to write this story because I've been through it. I just felt like I needed to explain.
It makes it mean so much more.
Awesome. Well, that's what it was supposed to do. It was supposed to be another story on top of the story.
What else did you guys have question-wise? Because we have to know what you're working on next. I always love that. I'm like, but make sure we got everybody's questions before we get there.
I don't have a question, but I just liked how you threw in that one of the characters was at the Frothy Monkey in Nashville. When I read your last book, I was actually in Nashville and I went to the Frothy Monkey and there was a free little library there. And I left the book I was reading in that free little library.
Oh,
So I was like,
nice.
kind of cool.
That's the fun part of having
Mhm.
Nashville be a setting and a character in these books. The problem is we change so much that restaurants, I mean, I actually in the last pass, I had to change the name of the donuts. In this book, it's Vegan V's, right?
Mhm.
And Vegan V's is closed. So I had
Oh.
to change it to Five Daughters because Five Daughters is now the gluten-free bakery. I also changed the name of the school in the last round. There were a lot of just little things like that I did between galley and final copy. This just had so many mistakes in it. Oh, I hate going to galley before copy edit. And it's something they do all the time. But yeah, Nashville is, it's in all of my books because obviously I know it so well, but it's so dynamic and so many people are coming here.
Mhm.
I mean, everything has changed dramatically. We went to the symphony last night, and normally we walk in the same door as because we come from the parking garage where we park by the hotel. We come in the back way, and it's where all the musicians are coming in. And you just walk in and then you walk across the lobby and go to where, everybody's going in. And we walked in there and she was like, "Oh, are you looking for the entrance?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're just cutting across." And she was like, No, you have to go out, go around and come in the front through security. I was like, "Whoa, okay, that's new."
Yeah.
They had security. They had a couple of cops there and everything because I guess people are just trying to get in. Because it looks like a cool place it is, the Skimmerhorn here is spectacular. So I guess people were just trying to come in from all the doors. So they had to lock everything down and make everyone come in the front. I was like, oh, I'm going to have to park on the other side of the city now, knowing that. But it's like, wow, that's just these little changes that happen every time we go downtown. It's a new restaurant. Now we have Cinderella carriages being pulled by mules. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, well, that's new. I mean, I actually like that better than the party bus, the pedal taverns and the party buses. Now we've got, it's more like New Orleans with the cute little, horse-drawn carriages and stuff, but it's crazy. It's crazy. It's a fun place to write about.
It's a place I want to visit. It's on my list of places to see. I
Oh,
haven't been.
It's really an awesome town. Hey, book launch is February 20th. Come on up, come to the book launch and
Oh my gosh, I would love to.
go around town.
I would absolutely love to. You know, I love you.
That'd be fun. That would be very fun.
You guys got anything else before we talk about what you're working on now? If you can tell us anything, can you tell us anything? Or is it still too new?
It's so new. It is so new. I've been working on it. It's hard to follow this one, right? It's always hard to follow a book that I feel like I leveled up. And I feel like I leveled up with.
Oh, you leveled up with It's One of Us.
Yeah.
For sure. Like that was like goosebumps worthy. Couldn't put it down. Like
Yeah,
it's personal. It's amazing. It's captivating.
Yeah.
That one's stellar. That was a cool one to get our hands on.
How do you follow that up, right? I mean, I always, and I always tell everybody else, you can't win the World Series every year. You can get yourself to the playoffs, and that is nothing to sneeze at. But every once in a while, you are going to win the World Series and it's going to be great. And then the next season is going to be difficult because of that expectation, the expectation of self, the expectation of your fans, just all of it. It starts getting in your head. You start thinking, how am I going to up my game? How can I make it better? And it's just like, you can't. Sometimes you level up and it's happened 4 or 5. So it happened with Judas Kiss, happened with The Deeper Darkness, happened with Lie to Me, and now it's happened with It's One of Us. So 4 times in my career of 29 books. It's happened 4 times. So I'm trying to let go of that pressure of you have to level up. It's got to be better. Rah. and just tell a good story. And it is about a reporter who's been hired to do an expose on a mega famous author. Like if Nora Roberts and Sarah J. Maas and Lee Bardugo and John Grisham and Stephen King and all of the mega writers you have ever, Diana Gabaldon, they all had a baby, that would be Columbia Jones. All right. She's epic. She's epic. 5,000 seat stadiums sell out, standing room only when she goes on tour. I mean, she's just huge and beloved, and everybody wants a piece of her. And she handpicks this reporter, Riley Carrington, to do a story on her for the magazine, which, you know, like the New Yorker. You've seen those great big articles that they do. So that's what Riley is working on. And they are in Denver on the last night of tour. They've just had this huge event. And Columbia dies. Columbia dies. And her daughter feels like she was murdered. And accuses Riley of doing it. And it all kind of goes from there. So it is the secrets of somebody who perhaps hasn't given a lot of herself to the world. Everything in her writing is all that she's given, and she has a very, very dark past that Riley has gotten a tiny little piece of before Columbia dies, and now has to figure out what's happening and why did Columbia pick her, and all of the things. So it is again a multi-narrated book, multiple points of view. I've only got Riley's, the first 100 pages, you know, are solid, and that's Riley's story. And so my agent has it this weekend.
Okay.
Last night on the way home from the symphony, I was telling my husband, I was saying this, you know, World Series analogy is like, it's not there. I mean, I don't know why I expect 100 pages to be what this is, that has been rewritten 7 or 8 times and took me 2 years to write. You know, it's only a tiny bit of pressure on myself, that, you know,
just a smidgen, just a small, yeah, smidgen.
So easy on myself. But I was telling him, I was like, just something. There was a piano virtuoso playing Chopin last night. He's 27. He's clearly he was a child prodigy. I mean, he had his first massive tour and deal and everything when he was 15. I mean, this guy,
Oh, wow,
has that talent, that innate talent. And we were talking about, what is he thinking when he's playing? And Randy's like, he's just thinking, don't miss the next note. I'm like, no, it's got to be more than that. It's got to be, I mean, if he's playing a 40-minute symphony with no sheet music, with passion and verve, and his hands are just moving in ways, you know, he's a freak of nature. And my husband's like, he's like a Victoria's Secret model and an NBA player. And I'm like, okay, I don't know that I'd use the Victoria's Secret model analogy because that's just God's gift. That's not necessarily exploiting it outside of, you know, we're going to have coffee and cigarettes for the 6 weeks before the show and nothing else. He was like, okay, that's fair. But the point being that there are people who are just, you know, they're just touched by something.
yeah, something special.
They're special, right? And I want the book to feel special. I want it to be touched. I want it to be wonderful. I want it to be the best thing I've ever given you. Every time I sit down to the page, I want to do something that's going to make you guys say, oh my God, I had goosebumps. It was incredible. It was the best thing you've ever written. That's in my head when I sit down to write. And so I was telling him that it's just not there. It's just not there yet. And I can't do one thing that I was trying to do. And he says, well, just focus focus on Riley. Just go ahead and just let it be her book. It's supposed to be somebody else's book, and Riley is kind of taken over. He says, well, let it be. I was like, all right. So we got home from the symphony, and I opened the manuscript just to make a couple of notes, and all of a sudden all this stuff clicked, and I wrote 1,000 words, and I had to send it to my editor or to my agent and say, all right, when you finish where it says more to come, open this and keep reading, because here's the more to come that got us to that turn. Now I see what my turn is.
Okay.
It's like, okay, I can work with this, but I haven't known what the turn is for months. I've been trying to figure out how I make that first turn so I can move into the next person's story. And I just have not been able to go to the next person's story. So it goes back to that linear versus braiding thing. This story, for some reason, has been very linear for me. And I'm working with the main character who's dead.
Yeah, that's challenging.
That is challenging. And I really, really like her. And I've been very resistant to her being dead. Very resistant to it, because I want to interact with her. So I have to go back. I have to go back in time and interact with her that way. And that's what I'm doing. And that's fine. So it's probably more than you needed to know, but
No, it's exciting. I'm like, it just gets us excited for the next one.
I
I'm like,
know.
we're going to always read your books. We're always going to love you. You are one of my favorites.
I appreciate that. Y'all are absolutely, I mean, to start tour like this, for you to be the first stop of the tour.
We are honored.
It's incredible. It bolsters me as an artist and as a person to be able to now go out and be like, okay, people are going to like this. It's going to be good.
They are going to like it. There's a level of vulnerability there, I think, that just makes the story so real and relatable, and nothing in it is so far-fetched that it hasn't happened, couldn't happen. You know what I'm saying? And it just keeps you, it propels you through every page, in my opinion.
No, thank you.
So it's incredible.
Success.
It's incredible. It's a World Series one. You won the World Series. Like, you knocked it out of the park with this book, JT, honestly.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it. I'm so glad you feel that way. It's a special one. It definitely is.
And it comes across that way.
Yay.
So we're excited for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Have you figured out where you're going on tour? Do you have everything
Yes.
scheduled?
So everything is scheduled. There's only a couple of things that are still in the wind, but almost everything is solid now. Everything that we have a date for is up on the website on the events page.
Are you in Georgia at all?
I am not in Georgia. I was in Georgia
Where are you?
a couple of weeks ago. I went to Serenbe. I've got a friend who lives in Serenbe.
Oh,
and
I love
Okay.
Serenbe.
Oh my gosh, what a cool place. So
Yeah.
the book after the book I'm writing is going to be set there.
Oh, cool.
Nice. Okay, very
Now,
cool.
I know what the next standalone is after the standalone that I'm working on. I kind of want to go write that one, which it's fine. It'll be there. It'll be there as soon as I finish this one. I get to go work on that.
That's really cool. I'm like, that's a perfect setting. It's a very like unique, magical place.
It's really funny. I had this dream about this town where this book is set. And when we were actually getting ready to leave, and we had gone to one of the shops, and they had this weird shocker realigning Tesla coil. And I had stood in front of it for like 10 minutes talking to the guy. And I did kind of feel a little like, this is interesting. And walked outside, and I was looking around. I'm like, it doesn't have the ocean and it doesn't have the funicular, but this is basically the exact same town. Oh, I can make this work. So I'm gonna go down there and spend a little bit of time while I'm outlining, trying to get the full sense
Nice.
of it. But we spent a couple of days there, and it was amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's very magical.
Yeah,
It's a fun place.
Tour is I'm going to Winter Institute and out in Seattle, coming
Oh,
back.
Jesse's
So-
that close to you?
Seattle.
Well, Jesse's in Washington. I don't know
I'm-
where
I'm
in
like an hour
Washington.
south of Seattle.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll be at Winter Institute, and then the tour got kind of screwed up because they moved my date. So I'm doing a launch party and ABA the first week the book's on sale, and I'm doing the normal tour the second week the book's on sale. So that's kind of strange, but so I'll be here, and then Seattle, and then home, and then back out to Scottsdale to Poison Pen, and then Murder by the Book in Texas, and then I go to South Carolina for a couple of dates, which I've never been to South Carolina for a tour before, so I'm kind of excited. And then Florida, and then home, and then that's it, because
Okay.
I've been having problems post-COVID, so
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you
gonna
doing?
be more than enough. I'm just limited as to how much I feel like I can achieve in a single week. A tour is grueling, so I'm trying to take it easy. And we had a meeting last week. I was like, I think this is enough. I think we got enough. I love the virtual. Let's just do some more virtual, and
Well, and the world's so much more open to virtual nowadays, especially too.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying, with the flu cases being up and everything else. Like
I'm
we are.
actually really worried. I mean, that's
I am for
February-
you, especially if you're having problems post-COVID.
Yeah.
And how's Jameson doing?
She's not in here. She's been real sick, and we've got her on some new medication, and I think that's helping.
Okay.
So, we'll see, but she's that poor thing, man.
Well, and I was gonna say, leaving your sick cat is not fun if you're not doing well, and your baby's not doing well, and
It's terrifying.
that's hard to leave.
Yeah. So it's going to be a good tour, but it's going to be a small tour. And that's, at my request. I just didn't want to go absolutely haywire this year. Next year we'll go haywire.
Hopefully you'll feel better and things will be better. And yeah. When's the next one due out?
I have no idea.
You're like, I've got 100 pages, Brittany.
I have 100 pages. I wanted to have it done before It's One of Us comes out. I can conceivably have it drafted by then. Now that I've turned that corner that I turned last night, that helped a lot. It's really funny. The first 25,000 words of a book for me is just really, really, really hard. And then it usually will take me 4 or 5 months to write that 25,000 words. And then I write the next 75,000 words in a month.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And that's very much my process. Once I figure out the set, I get it all. I get all of it. Then I can just.
Then it pours out, kind of like the spigot, basically.
Yep. I feel the spigot being turned on. Just awesome.
That's good news, especially if you want to move on to the next one. I'm like, you're probably like,
know.
spigot, please.
Right? Give me the water fountain so I can absolutely go. And because I really want to write the next one. I'm super excited about it. And it's Under the Tuscan Sun meets Stepford Wives.
Ooh,
Mhm.
that sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This one is very cool. It's like, there's only, 3 people that know what happened that night. Okay. That's very cool. It's very, very cool. But the next one is going to be even cooler.
I believe it. I'm excited.
And I've got the Joss Walker. We're going to have 2 books 3 and 4 out this year.
Brooke's excited. Brooke is captivated by those.
I love them. They're just so good and fun to read.
Fun. So, and so much is happening. We've hit this 3rd book, and from book 3 to book 4, the world's really changing because magic is turned back on. So now what? Right now there's like all these magical people who didn't know they had magic, and it's really fun. Rachel actually, we had done a huge edit, and she gave me the final edit yesterday. So I've got to finish writing the new book, and then I can tackle that.
I'm excited.
Also there's going to be the 9th Taylor book is going to be out in April, the end of April.
You've been busy.
Well, I stayed home last year and filled the pipeline. And that's good. That needed to happen. I mean, technically, I don't even have to worry about writing a book right now. I could wait a year and then come back to this. But I like to be ahead of the game. I want to have as many books done as I can. So, but if you guys are interested, I'll get you galleys of the Taylor book too. I
Yeah.
know you don't have room for the schedule to chat, but just for the fun.
Yeah,
of
I
it.
was gonna say it's always fun to have access to those to read.
Yep. So it's a
Yeah,
good one.
I
Gonna
booked
copy it
this
next
out.
week.
I booked this out pretty good this year. We're doing 30 books, which is the
Amazing
most.
lineup.
We're doing 30 books, which is the most we've done. And Caroline Keeps is going to do an arc. We're working on that. We're working on one with Eliza Jane Brazer again for her horse book that she just wrote. We're super excited about that. We've got Hank coming back in February for her arc that she's releasing that's coming out.
She sent me a note last night and said, "Did I send you that arc?" And I'm like, "No, you did not.
She-
You better
she-
get that in the mail."
I was gonna say we did one with Wendy Walker at the end of December. That was the last book of the year that we did was her. Oh my God, her book she just is about to release.
She's a brilliant woman.
She is
Really
spectacular.
amazing writer.
David Bell came last year. We're reading his first YA book, She's Gone, which we're excited about because he's kind of merged into the YA world. So we're intrigued by that. There's an artist that's in Australia who are author, and she's amazing, and she's gonna come. Joshua Jackson's coming this year. I've been talking to her for multiple years, but we haven't been able to connect to get her to come. Yeah, Josh. So she's she's committed. Lay Your Body Down. Amy Suter Clark is coming, but she's in like Brisbane, Australia or some. So we're doing it at like 7 o'clock on a Sunday to accommodate. We had to figure out our schedules for like when it was an okay time for her and an okay time for us, which was super fun.
That's neat.
So I'm like, we already have Christina McDonald's arc this year too for These Still Black Waters, her newest one that's coming out.
Yeah.
I'm like, we have a really good lineup this
It's a
year.
really amazing lineup. I mean,
I work hard on planning out like what we're going to read, but it was hard to pare down because there's so much coming out that's like,
it is an embarrassment of riches, right?
it's exciting. I'm like, it's a good problem to have where I'm like, how do I pick?
I can't get anywhere near as many read that I want.
Well, and we stay loyal. Like you are one, if you've got one coming out, you're always going to be on our list. You know what I'm saying? There's some authors that I just adore that we're always going to have back because I love you guys. I'm like, y'all get slots. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay, so JT, she gets like first choice, first slot. And then I fill in with new people that we, maybe haven't read before or met or to try to bring different perspectives and different books. And then I feel like sometimes I get too dark. So I put in like a happy rom-com for everybody because I'm like, I'm sorry. Welcome to my like dark thriller train.
For listening, right? By Julie Whalen.
No, that's on our book list for this
That's on
year.
the list. Okay.
Yes, that's on this list because you recommended that. And so that
So
I had to put
good.
into this year. I know you sang its praises and you got me so excited. So that's why I put it on. I'm like, in our favorites, when you guys suggest, I'm like, I take that in mind and I take a note. And if I can fit it into the year we're in, I fit it in, or I try to put it on the next year's list.
She's amazing. She's reading It's One of Us.
Nice.
Mhm.
That's
I wrote
awesome.
this book with her in mind.
That's cool.
I had her voice as Olivia. She was Olivia to me from the very, 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 very beginning. And I wrote her when I was writing it. And I'm like, listen, I'm writing a book with you in mind. Will you please consider reading it for me? And she was like, her calendar is booked. And she was like, I will do my best. And I told my publisher, and then I came back to her and I went back to the publisher. And then I heard nothing and I was like, darn it. Cause I mean, she's just packed. I mean, get her, I mean, she's just Harvard on steroids right now. And they came back and they said, we've got great news. Julia's going to read. And I was like,
that's amazing.
I'm so excited for the audio. Cause I literally, Olivia's voice is Julia's voice. I just, heard it while I was writing.
I was going to say, how perfect is that?
Yeah, and that, that might also be one of the reasons why this connected so well, because I had such a specific voice in mind. I have to go back and think about that. I have to go maybe listen to some audiobooks and see, because
And
I don't
see, I
read.
do a mix. I'm like, when we get an arc, it's the time that I'm actually reading. But I listen a lot of times. Like that's how I keep up with all of our books. So if we don't have an arc, I'm probably listening to it. And so that's how I digest most of our books.
Kara Rauda's The Widow is really great too, if you haven't read it.
Okay. No,
Really fun.
writing it down.
Really, really fun. This has been so much fun, you guys. What a great way to start tour.
We love you. We're excited for you. I'm going to get you that book list. I'll add your songs to it and then I'll send you that link and the playlist back so you can post it and share it and have that.
Awesome. Awesome. That's very cool.
And if you'll keep us in mind for anything else in the future, we'll read it regardless. We
Oh.
love you.
Always, always, always.
You're one of my favorites.
Thank you. You guys are mine too. This
It's
is always
just,
fun.
it's just fun. And you always like talking to you is just so much fun to learn about the book and the inspiration and the development. And it's just wonderful. So
Thank you. Thank you.
happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. Happy New Year. I hope you have a fabulous, fabulous weekend and keep reading.
Safe travels on your tour. Stay healthy, stay well. And we'll be praying for Jameson.
Thank you. I appreciate that. She needs some little kitty prayer. She's hanging in there, but she's having a rough go. So we'll see.
Annabelle's been the same way. So I know how it feels. So we'll be praying. Yeah. I'm like, that's your baby.
Yeah. Yeah. It's no
So
fun.
no.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.